Shalom, it's the time, hit the mic, we align. Torah flow so divine, got the grind by design. From the shtetl to the limelight, stars in the scene. Schmoozing pride, branding dreams, keep it kosher clean. Schmoozing time, where the real ones meet. Jewish pride, beats hit, can't retreat. Personal brands leveled up, take the stage. Schmoozing vibe, wisdom out the cage. Bagels.
Hey Schmoozers, welcome back to the show. For those of you that are new here, I'm David Cobby, and we have a fantastic episode this week. Before I introduce our next guest, I truly just want to thank you for tuning in today. It truly means a lot to me that you're spending part of your day with us. Here with me today, someone who's not only an exceptional basketball player, but also a true competitor who has thrived at every stage of life. He's a 1,000-point scorer at the high school level, played on one of the top high school teams in the country. In college, he shot only 43% from three at Slippery Rock University. And now he's playing professionally in Israel and most recently played for Hapoel Eilat. All this while being what most scouts consider a quote-unquote undersized guard at 5'10". But trust me, there's nothing small about his game. What really sets this man apart is what he does off the court. He's the founder of Jab Camp, not your typical basketball camp that it really goes into detail, not only on the game, but also equips kids with real life tools such as how to stop hate, understanding financial literacy, prioritizing nutrition, and also building character. Calling in all the way from Israel today, I'm hyped to welcome this week's guest to the show, Jared Armstrong. Jared, how are we doing today, brother?
What's up, David, man? How you doing?
Jared, first of all, I greatly appreciate you coming on the show. I know you're an extremely busy guy between basketball and Jab Camp and just everything else that you're doing. And one thing I always like to do with my guests is first thing is I like them to introduce their Jewish background, not only like who they are, but also, you know, talking about why you're proud to be Jewish. And I think you have definitely a very unique Jewish background growing up in Philly. And then also, you know, when you eventually moved to Israel and like getting denied Israeli citizenship, despite being Jewish, like, I think that's definitely a good story to talk about. So would love to have you just like jump into your Jewish background, why you're proud to be Jewish, and, you know, kind of why you chose Israel of all places to play.
Yeah, I mean, for me, Jewish been all my life pretty much. You know, I grew up pretty strict. I was, one of those kids that just had to be in a synagogue every Saturday. Didn't really enjoy it. I never really felt religious. I never, reading the Torah for me was like, misery, honestly. But I always, I always used to tell my grandma, who's still super religious, the Torah is just a bunch of stories, and she used to tell me like I'm this crazy kid, and I just had a hard time not really telling, but really understanding. Nobody lived 400 years. Like, that was my whole thing there. Like, nobody lived 150 years. Like, this is bullshit. And she used to just tell me like, "Hey, man, you're crazy." But I always more so always expressed my Judaism as how I treated people.
Mm-hmm.
I always followed kind of just the rules of the Ten Commandments, and that's how I believe. Like, I believe you show your Judaism and your Tikkun Olam by how you treat people and your actions, more so than being someone that reads Torah all day. You could still be an asshole. So,
Mm-hmm.
I believe how you treat people, respect how you treat others, how people treat you, and honor your father, your mother, and, don't do anything crazy. Like, I consider that being a person that's a good Jew. I mean,
Yeah.
growing up, and after I was 12, I kind of did kind of how most people do. I became more secular just with AAU and basketball, and, being able to, play at the collegiate level. And then,
Mm-hmm.
once after college, I had a, pretty good career, and, I told my agent at the time, like, "Hey, man, I'm Jewish." And he was like, "Oh shit, really?" And he was kind of surprised. So, uh, we had a team that wanted me, and that's when kind of the whole debacle happened. So, for me, it was a learning experience. It was just a piece of adversity, and it built more character for me. I felt like that whole fighting for citizenship should have never happened. But things
Hmm.
happen in life that are always unexpected. You take the punches and you live with it. And now I can tell that story to my kids. But the fight was bigger than me. It was more so for my family, and I didn't want a stigma on me. If I didn't fight, like he just came here for basketball, like he's a liar. So I felt it was necessary for if any other my family members wanted to come here, or any of my kids and future pet and future tense. So
Hmm.
it was bigger than me, and it was a hell of a journey. And I met
Yeah.
other people along the way that you know I felt were, mentors, and, were they able to help me through the process. But other than that, it is what it is. I live with it. A lot of people are inspired by it. And that's one thing that I'm, happy that I went through it, because I get so many messages, people that come up to me, other Jewish Americans that play in the league that may have heard of it, and just, inspired them to keep going in other aspects of life.
So I gotta ask you, you faced a lot of, like you just mentioned, you faced a lot of trouble getting that citizenship, and I think I read somewhere it took you about 2 years. So now that you are an Israeli citizen and you're playing in Israel, do you think you appreciate that more than like the average person that made Aliyah just because you had to really fight for it, or yeah?
I wouldn't say appreciation. I mean, I would just call it bullshit, honestly. I just, you have some people that come here and they have no idea about the country or anything, and then here I am, the kid that I had to fight for it. So I think for me, it's just a bunch of bullshit. But it is what it
Right.
is. I don't really have any regret about it. That's what happened. Hopefully that mistake doesn't happen to someone else, and that I was able to help pioneer whatever the issue was, that they felt. So I don't really
Mhm.
look at it that way. It's no really competitive nature or anything. It's just, it is what it is. It happened to me. Hopefully it doesn't happen to someone else. And if it does, maybe I'm that guy that's able to help fix it.
Right. So another great thing about you is that you are not only proud Jew, but also you're representing the Black community, which I think is incredible because a lot of people, at least you look at the mainstream media, like they don't think of a Jewish person as somebody that is Black, and I think a lot, and especially in Israel. There's a lot of Jews of color. I think just representing the not only the Jewish people, but also Jews of color, I think is an amazing initiative that you have. You're proud to be a strong Black Jew. So I guess like tell me about like what that means to you and like maybe some of the challenges that you face on a day-to-day basis.
Yeah, I mean, it's a part of life, growing up. I dealt with racism at an early age. So, being black is something that you can't, take away. It has its challenges. It's like, other maybe ethnic groups have their challenges. But, for
Hmm.
me, I just try to be a good person, a good leader, and, hopefully help other people that are struggling, that may be, African American, or maybe Jewish, or Jews of color, whatever it may
Right.
be. But, I think, obviously black people have struggled for years, racial discrimination, social justice issues, racial inequality. So that's why one of the reasons I built Jab Campus to use sport and use that type of way to try to prevent racial issues in the future. Do I think I'm going to be successful? That's my goal, but at least I died trying one day. So, I mean, it's tough to be black. It's tough to be Jewish, nowadays. So you can imagine what it feels like to be both. But, I just try to live my best life, and, whatever happens, happens.
I love it, man. Why are you so positive? I feel like you just said right there, it's very hard to be Black. It's very hard to be Jewish. And, we're going to get into your basketball career and the foot injury that you have and, just all this adversity that you've like gone through. And you're going so far out of your way to help people that are kind of dealing with the same issues that you've dealt with your entire life. Yet you're still so positive. Like I feel like it would be so easy for you to just like take the punches, be like, man, like, I got denied Israeli citizenship. Oh well, like I guess I'll go play somewhere else. Or man, I faced racism. Like I guess I don't know. There's nothing I can do about it. But you're actually doing something about it. So where does that come from? Does that come from your parents? Does that come from experience? Like tell me about that.
That's a great question. I mean, growing up, I don't think you get anything from losing or anything from quitting. Growing up, I was always a extreme competitor. So I think when you have the will to win, or when something bothers you in your heart, the people that change the world are the ones that are crazy enough to do it. Nobody probably thought an iPhone would be ever popular 20 years ago, but there's some
Mhm.
fucking crazy guy that said, "Hey, I'm gonna create an iPhone." Everybody laughed at him until he did
Yeah.
it. So you look at all these leaders around the world that's been able to make change, and nobody believe them until they do it. And I just feel like I've created that mantra for myself. Like, nobody's going to give a fuck about you or care, about you until you win. And, that's kind of what drives me is, at the end, that winning goal, or that, that feeling that you help someone or help, millions of people. So I think that's the most important thing for me, and just try to be my authentic self while doing it. So.
And you mentioned winning. That's all you've done your entire basketball career. As I mentioned, you're 1,000 point scorer in high school. You went to one of the best basketball schools in the country for high school. Then played at Slippery Rock, shot 43% from deep there. You're playing overseas now, and all while being a 5'10" guard, which in Jewish terms, being 5'10", like I'm 5'11", like I'm considered a tall person. But in the basketball world, 5'10", there are, that's probably like 2% of the NBA. I don't know. I'm just making that number up. But I guess, like, do you think being an undersized guard helped you a lot with being more competitive?
Yeah, I mean, you got to. I mean, if not, somebody's going to replace you. I think, when you're 5'10" or under 6 feet, like, you got to be a dog, or you got to be something spectacular for coaches to, one. I mean, listen, growing up, I played against some of the best people in the world, guys that play in the NBA now. And, you realize, everybody's not God given talent, and I had to work hard for, all the talents I had. I was lucky to have a parent that, now is in the Hall of Fame in Philadelphia basketball. But I mean, other than
Hmm.
that, everything that I've gotten, I worked for. I probably can't jump over a piece of shit, but, I've been able to, you know, work on my athleticism, work on my body to the point where, nobody's going to post me up or anything like that. But other than that, the rest, I think being under 6 foot, you have to have that grit. You got to have that competitive nature. You got to have that resilience. Because if not, coaches are just going to recruit that 6'2", 6'1" guy. Same with trying to go to the NBA.
Hmm.
So, same with Isaiah Thomas, same with all these other small guards that have been successful. You got to have, that extra edge, that extra push, to want you to keep going.
Yes, sir. I love that. So take me through your routine, just like basketball wise, and throughout high school, college now. How has your routine changed from high school to now, or has it been pretty consistent across the board?
I mean, I still think it's pretty consistent. I think, as you get older, you got to work smarter, right? You can't do the same. I can't move the same way that I moved when I was 16. And I think, as you get older, you just get smarter. You develop new habits. And, as a pro, the most important thing is taking care of your body. I trained like a maniac when I was, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. I mean, I still train like a maniac
Yeah.
compared to others. That's just kind of the drive that's within me. But I work smarter now, and I do different things that can add to my game or make me more flexible, make me more mobile. The game has changed from when I was 16 to now that I'm
Hmm.
28. There was no Steph Curry, when I was 16, 15 years old. So, I
Right.
just, shooting has always been a gift that I feel like was given by God, even though I, have worked for it. But other than that, that's kind of where I focus on, is just where can I really better my game at, and, making your weaknesses your strengths. That's how you continue to get better.
You said you train like a maniac, and I know you have a chronic foot injury. Obviously, I wouldn't call it a weakness because it's not necessarily your fault. Like you have this chronic foot injury that, and I'm like totally blanking on the name of it right now. But you have a chronic foot injury, and that obviously prevents you from overtraining, and you gotta be very careful. How do you be a maniac, like train like a maniac, but also mitigate the risk of re-injuring your foot over and over again?
I mean, so when I was born with something called tarsal coalition,
Hmm.
which means there are two metatarsal bones that are connected. So, I mean, my body didn't really know about that till you're older. It doesn't come out till you're 15 to 18 years old. So, I mean, I would just be in a lot of man, I would be in a lot of fucking pain after AAU events. But I mean, like that didn't really bother me through my college career. I mean, more so, I'm actually trying to figure it out more now. Recently, I broke my fibula and
Hmm.
dislocated my ankles. Now I'm actually, figuring out smarter ways to work. But shit, listen, man, this is a part of life.
Yeah.
You doing good things and then boom, a piece of adversity hits again. So, I mean, my technically they say my fibula is actually stronger because I have metal in it. So that's interesting to hear. But now it's just summer, just focusing more so on things that I can take care of my body, whether it's low impact training of swimming, yoga, doing more stuff in the pool, low impact stuff. And with all this new technology too, man, I mean, it's so many new things that you can do to, strengthen your body, strengthen your game,
Hmm.
on and off the courts. I mean, I see robots now passing the basketball instead of people. So it's
What?
evolving.
That's unbelievable. Yeah, the game is changing in tons of ways, and not just like the whole 3 point shooting is kind of just the mantra of offenses now, but there's I saw this. It was like a couple of years ago. It was like the Spalding. Maybe it wasn't Spalding, but it was like the ball that wasn't. It was like basically like hollow. The way that the game is changing is unbelievable. I do think the NBA though has kind of, and I think this is just like a consensus among my friends and I mean the playoffs are great, but I think the one leg up that overseas ball has over the NBA is I feel like the intensity is just like significantly more there's significantly more intensity overseas when you're playing ball against these guys. And I think even Luca came out and said like, yeah, like playing in the NBA is like easier than overseas because these guys like are so much more intense and they play defense and they I don't know. It's just this is what I've been hearing. So to confirm or disagree with my beliefs, do you agree with that? Do you think playing overseas is a little bit more intense defensively than the NBA, or you think NBA is still top notch?
I mean, the NBA is the best players in the world. I'll never, knock that for sure. But I just think the FIBA rules, are much different. In the NBA, you can't touch. Here, you're allowed to
Yeah.
touch. Especially in the playoffs. They're not calling as many fouls. So I would say it's more old school rules that still apply here. I mean, they do call it touch fouls, and if you hit their elbows, but it's definitely much more, physical, and fans are crazier here. So the games get way more intense. They're more diehard fans. They're really on the floor, and you can hear them. They can sometimes even touch you, depending on the arena you're in. So
Really?
it all comes together as one for sure, and you can feel the pressure.
How's the basketball scene in Israel? I know there's tons of different leagues, and I went to a Maccabi Tel Aviv game. It was a playoff game. It was unreal. It was the most unbelievable atmosphere that I've ever been in. So I want to get your opinion. Like, Israel and basketball like here to stay? Is it legit? Like, what do you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's some of the best basketball in the world. I mean, I guess I'm biased. I never played in another country, but when you have guys consistently coming over here that played at a high level, next year they're saying there's going to be 3 EuroLeague teams here in Israel. So, it
Wow.
kind of speaks to the level of competition and, how many teams are more driven to get to the highest level. But yeah, I would consider there's people in both the first and second league that went to EuroLeague, and that's not common in most leagues around the world. But yeah, I would consider the basketball here,
That's
very high level.
crazy.
It's very competitive. So
Why do you think that is? I mean, I feel like you see like guys, for example, Pat Bev is a great example, played in the NBA for God knows how long, and then decides to go play in Israel. Like why do you think so many guys are coming over to Israel, which, the rest of the world sees as like this quote unquote war torn country, whatever. Like it's really first of all, it's a beautiful place, but also it's becoming better for basketball all of a sudden. So why do you think that is?
I think as a country, as far as how it is, I mean, it's like, I mean, for me, it's like a vacation site. You come here, you can go to practice if coach kick you out of practice or practice was bullshit. You can go to the beach and hang your feet up for the day. For I mean,
I
for the
love it.
most part, it's it's easy. It's compared to other countries in the story I hear. It's easy living. You have one practice a day. Two it's kind of weird to say, but you have one
Hmm.
practice a day and you're done, and if you're living in Tel Aviv, you're like living in paradise. So,
Yeah.
uh, you're surrounded by beaches. The women are beautiful. A lot of people that, hear that and they want to come compared to going to a country that's freezing cold for 6, 7 months. I mean, that's not really enjoyable to do, but here's a very enjoyable place to play. And, I think a majority of players would agree with me that, it's one of the nicest, countries in the world for sure as far as
a-
basketball.
Absolutely. Yeah. Tel Aviv is something else like that. Just the beach and the shops and I spent a couple summers there. Like the clubs there are unbelievable, and it's just it's a really just great environment. And I don't know. I want to go back. I want to go back so badly. Like I haven't
Yeah,
been back in a
what's
while.
holding you up, man?
Dude, I got work now. I'm a working man. Like I went all the time when I was in college, and I spent a summer there. I was living like right near Serona Market, so it was just like the
Yeah,
perfect area.
you was living life, man. You
Yeah,
was living life for sure.
I was living like I was at the beach, man. It was awesome. Are most of your teammates Jewish, by the way, or no?
No, so each team can have, depending on which league, four is Americans, five Americans, six Americans, and the rest are local or they're like me, where they're Jewish Americans. So this year we have me and two other Jewish American, and then the regular Americans as well.
How's that been with the Americans like intermingling with the Israelis? Like I know, Americans and Israelis are you know this better than I do. Completely America and Israel are two completely different cultures, yet I mean we somehow get along. So has there been any tension there with like I don't know, societal norms, or you think everything's smooth sailing?
No, I mean I think everything's full selling. I mean competitive wise, you got some guys that may get into it, but that's just a part of the game. But other than that,
Gotcha.
yeah, no issues at all. Our team gets along pretty well.
Got you, got you. So on this topic of diversity, I think one of the things that you really stress in Jab Camp is this idea of diversity, and you're bringing in people from all over, Jewish, Muslim, Christian, all literally a melting pot of kids that want to play basketball, and you're teaching them things that are not taught at basketball camp. And I went to this Nike basketball camp. It was crazy, crazy intense. It was like I never played AAU, but it was like I would say like a notch under AAU, where just like kids were like crazy insane. Like I wasn't that good, but I could play. But anyway, the camp, it was just all about basketball. And I feel like there's just so much more of an opportunity to teach about the game. And I know one of the things that you say is like basketball is just like a universal language, right? Like there's so much more that can be taught about life than just playing basketball. So with that being said, like you have a ton of initiatives with Jab Camp, right? Bringing people together, unifying to people from different cultures, teaching people about financial literacy. Nutrition is a huge thing. But I guess like taking those three, or maybe there's more elements together, like what is your main goal of Jab Camp? Like when you want a camper to walk out of that camp, like do you want them to become better at basketball? Do you want them to become better at life? Like what is it that you truly want from Jab Camp?
Yeah, I mean, I want them to become both. If they can leave Friday making a layup and they didn't couldn't make a layup on Monday, I did my job. That's one of the keys is for them to just understand the game, understand basketball, understand the commonalities of it. But the bigger thing is, you know, uh, better at life and understanding life skills. I mean, listen, basketball is a game. For everybody. Everybody has a purpose, but basketball is just a platform that leads you to your bigger purpose. I've been fortunate enough to play at the pro level, make money doing what I love. A lot of people can't say that. And now this is kind of my platform to get back to inspire the next generation and, hopefully, inspire another kid to figure out what their purpose is. So, I just think all the intangibles that come with jab, leads into life. All right,
Mhm.
you want to be an athlete, you want to be a pro player, but you can't understand how to take care of your money. So you're going to end up broke. That's great. Or, okay,
Mhm.
you want to play basketball at the collegiate level or you want to play basketball at the pro level, but you don't understand nutrition. You want to go to eat McDonald's after every game. You're not going to be
Yeah.
successful. So, I just think and even coming through our inclusion classes with understanding racism, anti-Semitism, Islamophobia. Like, okay, you're going to go work in the real world. You didn't play basketball, but you've never been around Black people, or you've never been around Muslim people, or you've never been around
Hmm.
Jewish people. So how are you going to
Hmm.
compensate and understand each other if you never done that until you're out of college? Like, that doesn't
Right.
work. So, my thing is just all these things come together as one, and, one, they all go hand in hand with each other, money, nutrition, understanding one another. And that's all a part of basketball. Same thing here. I had to learn that coming overseas. I got to understand the Israeli culture. I got to understand Israeli teammates.
Hmm.
I have to learn them. They have to learn me. And that's a part of the game. And that leads into other conversations, that we have as teammates. But I think all in all, Jab Camp is much bigger than basketball. And just as a person that played AAU, these are the things I didn't learn. Nobody give a fuck about how much money I, made or recouped. All they wanted was $1 for my parents to pay for AAU, and that's it. And then, what
Hmm.
are you learning at the end of the day? Is it just that you cared about, I tell kids all the time, you care about winning a fifth grade championship. Nobody's going to give a fuck when you're 20 that you won fifth
Yeah.
grade championship for AAU. But
Right.
if you leave this tournament, you learn some money management that can help you save and invest your money 5 years from now. That's more meaningful. So I
Absolutely.
think that's the important thing. And that's, we're at the tip of the iceberg. I have so many different ideas and plans, but the biggest thing is really just teaching them things that they can take for the rest of their life.
As someone that went through youth sports their entire, I mean, I played baseball competitively for 7, 8 years, played basketball competitively for 6, 7 years, and done camps like these. Like, you're preaching to the choir here. It is the game, like youth sports in general. It's just, I think it just becomes so competitive. Which, like, I'm very competitive myself, which I love that, but you're losing the purpose of the game. And all the things that you're mentioning, like, for example, nobody cares about a fifth grade championship that you won, right? Yet parents are, and I'm saying this as somebody who was a baseball umpire for a couple of years, like, yet parents think it's like this is a make or break thing in their career. Like, no, it's fucking not, man. Like, this like, it's literally the point of the game is like for you to have fun. And I feel like that's getting lost a lot. And I mean, you talk about AAU. Like, I didn't even play AAU, but I just know from hearing other people that have played AAU that it's like, I mean, it's a very very toxic place. Like, let's be real. Like, like the whole thing with the agents coming in and like, I don't know. Like, I really think there needs to be a better system in place where kids can still play at the competitive level, yet they need to learn all these life skills that you're teaching in Jab Camp. So I guess, do you hope that like other people are going to replicate what you do, or do you want this to kind of be your own thing, like your own unique thing that nobody else does?
I mean, I'm not a selfish guy. I mean, I think that's the point of competitors.
Yes, sir.
Competitors mock each other. When someone mocks you, that means you're doing something right, obviously. So, I hope more people do it. I mean, listen, kids are getting fucked out here from contracts,
Yeah.
all that type of stuff, and it's starting more now. And the more dangerous thing is it's starting at an early age. Nobody
Yeah.
gives a fuck. Sixth, seventh, eighth grade. If they have a way to take advantage of you and you don't know any better. My thing is
Hmm.
just, all these things that I'm trying to teach them is focused around education. The more knowledgeable, the more educated you are, the less somebody can fuck you. And that's just
Absolutely.
the reality of it. So, I just think, the way people view an athlete, and I'm glad, people like LeBron, have created a brand where it's more than an athlete and uninterpreted, where you show that we can be business people. But I think there's this big stigma that, we're just supposed to shut up and dribble. Obviously in the last couple of years that have changed, but when you're in fifth, sixth, seventh, eighth grade, when you able to learn about investments. I mean, most of these billionaires you see, they started at 13, 14,
Hmm.
15 years old. And the same mantra, the same thing that you're putting in the game, you got to put out the game.
Yeah.
I'm glad we're starting to see more professional athletes that are becoming, super successful in business. But I think we're still at the tip of the iceberg. Like, there's too many players that are going broke. If you look at
Yeah.
the statistics, 60% of NBA players, a big percentage of NFL players, a big percentage of MLB. And it's like this
Hmm.
system is fucking us, and it has to change. Or if not, this continuously will go on. So that's kind of where I'm inspired at to try to, change that mode. And listen, I'm not perfect either. I make bad financial decisions, but
Absolutely.
that's all a part of life. And, hopefully, my thing is to teach kids the mistakes that I made and how to prevent them.
Absolutely. Wow. Man, you're really I love that you're so focused on shit that actually matters, right? Cuz basketball, it's like, especially NBA players or even at the collegiate level now, like they're getting NIL money, they're getting millions of dollars. Like these guys that are getting college, which I think by the way is phenomenal. I think college players absolutely should be getting NIL money, but if you're going to be fucking stupid with it, like you're literally throwing away generational wealth. You'd think it's very easy to, put your money wherever in a savings account or in a Roth IRA or wherever, but people just don't want to do it because it's not sexy. It's not something that like you want to go spend your money, right? Which is great. Like you should absolutely go spend your money, but at the same time, it's like you got to do the little things right. So I'm glad
Yeah, I
that
mean,
you're, yeah.
I just think the system as a culture, at least in my community, is fucked. I've been blessed to work, be friends, partner with some of the wealthiest people in the world. Wealth
Mhm.
whispers. Most of these people drive Kias. They don't give a fuck about a Maybach or a fancy car or Range Rover. And most of those people that do, they're not really the ones that's making a lot of money because the
Right.
wealthy people don't want any attention. They just want to be able to take their granddaughters or grandsons out for a walk, go take their dog out, be with their wife and chill. I
Mhm.
have a billionaire friend that lives here in Israel. He has one pair of shoes, literally.
I
Like,
love
hey,
it.
I just brought a new pair of shoes today. Finally, like they don't give a fuck.
I love
But
it.
at the end of the day, they'll wear a pair of Goma jacket and be the richest one in the room, and nobody would know it. So I just think
Absolutely.
the culture, at least in my community, has to change where they care about showing their wealth when they're really not wealthy. Your
Hmm.
$1 million is going to be gone in the snap of a finger once you buy after taxes, once you buy a Maybach, and once you buy a house. You're broke. And I think
Right.
people care about the wrong, just the wrong shit. So that's
Right.
something I personally had to learn, and I really don't even care about most of that stuff, but
Right.
uh, I think that's one thing that has to change just financially. If you want to be financially free, what matters most? Wearing a $100,000 rollie or having $100,000 in the bank.
When you're flexing, like you said, like a Maybach or like a Rolly or whatever, all these things that are considered like blingy and like cool, whatever chains, people care for like 5 seconds and then they move on. Right. That's kind of just like how social media works now is like you're flexing this, whatever, and then you move on. And it's just like, it's very sad to me that, and again, everybody does their own financial decisions, whatever. Like you said, like you make financial mistakes. I fucking make financial mistakes, even though I work in finance. Like, trust me, I made a ton of financial mistakes, but it's just it's sad to me that like there needs to be more of this education. And I think from the athlete's perspective, right, you talk about having a platform. Athletes out of probably anybody in the world have the strongest platform, which is why they get, a lot of these athletes like LeBron and I mean even after they retire, Shaq, like all these guys are making so much money off endorsement deals because their word means so much. And like people have this platform where they could do whatever they want. And some people choose to do it for the money, right? Some people like you are doing it because you want to educate people. Like that's really your main goal. So as an athlete, right? Your brand is huge. It spans miles long across the world, whatever. A lot of people that are athletes, I feel like don't choose what you're doing. So why do you think there's not more people like you, Jared, that are creating the equivalent of jab camps for their communities?
I don't know. I mean, I think this is a hard, topic to speak on as far as, if they care or not. I think most people do care about their communities, wherever they come from, but I think there's just, like I said, there's people that are crazy. Like I consider myself a crazy person that say they're going to change the world and then people laugh at them until they do. So, I think that's where I'm at and what kind of separates me and what I'm trying to do is, there's someone that has to do it and I'm willing to be the person that wants to make change. Obviously there's a lot of barriers, there's a lot of bullshit you have to go through, a lot of people you got to deal with, obviously, to make the change. But I think those are the inherent sacrifices that helps people generation to come. I think we are starting to see more athletes that care about their community. You saw Angel Reese starting the financial literacy education for
Mhm.
Baltimore,
Yep.
met with Magic Johnson. So, I mean, I think there is, but I think it's step by step. I mean, I think a lot of athletes, really don't probably find their purpose. I can't speak for all of them until they're
Yeah.
done playing, which is normal. But for me, I think like a business, the earlier you start, the more experience you have, the bigger you're able to grow your brand. The later you start, the less opportunity you have. So, that's why I wanted to start Jab Camp while I'm playing, because I saw a lot of mistakes from former athletes that have made millions of dollars that,
Mhm.
stop playing and they don't have shit to do, or have
Yep.
no clue what they want next, or no, what we would say, purpose. So, I
Yep.
didn't want to be in those shoes. Obviously, I may never make millions of dollars on the court as they have, but I know I have the opportunity with Jab Camp to scale it globally and, make a bigger impact.
I love it, man. And I love how many times you said like you're crazy enough to do it. I think that's a big theme for me personally. Like I feel like I'm crazy by doing this podcast, for example. It's nowhere near the level of what you're doing, but even just getting to that craziness level of like doing something that like not a lot of other people are fucking doing, like I love that. And for you to go so far out of your way to create Jab Camp, which is something I wish I had in my youth. I really wish I had that, but hopefully you're gonna, or not hopefully, I know you're gonna change the next generation of basketball players, and making better people, making stronger connections. So keep going, man.
Oh, I appreciate it, man. Thanks so much
Of,
for having me,
of
and
course.
much for your time.
Of course. So where can, before I actually let you go, where can people find you on social media, learn more about Jab Camp? And maybe they can help out with, whether it's like coaching or whatever it is. Like how can people help out?
It's just at Jared Armstrong _ on Instagram, or you can follow our Jab Camps page on Instagram. Same with LinkedIn, just at Jared Armstrong, and that's pretty much my two main platforms right now.
That's good. I'm so glad you enjoyed this week's episode of Schmoozing Time. Thank you so much for tuning in. In addition to sharing this episode with someone, make sure you follow on Instagram, TikTok, Facebook, and YouTube Shorts. Also, make sure you're following the show on Apple Podcasts and or Spotify. Until next time, keep schmoozing.